Welcome to JonBownePolitix number 24. This country is asleep. How do you know when your nation is asleep? Well, it's pretty easy. Take the big tech takeover of our fundamental human rights as expressed through the Bill of Rights, given to us by a higher power, and yet Silicon Valley somehow owns those rights now. If you can ban the First Amendment because you're a private company, what's stopping you from banning the rest of the Bill of Rights? Or any other constitutional amendment, or any U.S. code or law of the land? They just don't matter anymore as long as you're powerful enough and you have more users than China. So if you take the big tech takeover of our fundamental rights, our natural born rights, then you add to that the constant attacks from CNN and MSNBC towards the executive office of the United States, because it's not going to stop once Trump leaves or gets voted out. They've set the precedent. So just take Trump completely out of the equation. So you've got the big tech takeover of our fundamental rights, and then you've got the constant attack by the mainstream, lamestream, mockingbird media, and then you've got the will of the Democratic Socialist Party. Now just take this modern situation that we're in, jump in Marty McFly's time machine with me, go back to the Eisenhower administration and say 1955, and it becomes crystal clear. This situation can't exist in 1955. The executives at CNN, MSNBC, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. would have been swiftly rounded up and faced 20 years mandatory, according to a myriad of U.S. codes enacted after World War II to ward off the scourge of communism as it had pertained to overthrowing the United States, something we are overwhelmed by today. President Trump and the willing members of Congress, I know it sounds Orwellian, authoritarian, totalitarian to say to round these people up, but it's only going to get worse. They're already promoting the will of Antifa, which is a communist organization, which is supported by the communism that spread like a cancer into our universities and into our public education, right down to preschool now. Facebook allows people to openly call for the assassination of the occupant of the executive office. And again, if you think it will change once Trump's out of office, you're fooling yourself. They've set the stage. The only way to reset the stage, unfortunately, is to start holding people accountable according to U.S. code that was set into law by the legislature. President Trump and the willing members of Congress have to merely enforce a myriad of U.S. codes upon the communist Trojan horse of Silicon Valley and cable news. Things have gotten so out of hand, I think the American people would greatly appreciate it if the three branches of government handled their business as diligently as the American people are. Something has to change. Somebody has to wake up in Washington, D.C., because a giant black hole of communism has opened up in this country, and we're all being swallowed by it.
President Trump's furious reaction to Facebook's action showcases that he is, I'm sorry to say, the InfoWars president.
CNN's panel of totalitarian wannabes is setting the table for the ban of President Trump's social media presence.
Trump is doing this because he needs people to believe that Facebook is against him and that Facebook is biased against him, because that's the only way that he has the space to operate on Facebook. And so if they go after InfoWars for misleading content, if they go after Milo, if they go after any of these folks, he's going to be next. And so that's why he's doing that, because he needs to be able to draw he can't let them draw a distinction between what InfoWars is doing and what NBC or CNN or any mainstream media organization is doing.
Even though what we get from InfoWars is conspiracy theory crap.
Well, these are very extreme individuals, and no matter what anyone tells you, they are extremists, and that's why Facebook decided to get rid of them from the platform the other day. And back to your point, though, about the InfoWars presidency, I want to know, and I tweeted this the other day, what is the difference at this point between Trump's Twitter feed and Infowars.com? You know, Infowars might have been banned from Twitter, but it seems to have found a new home over at Trump's Twitter feed. And while he's promoting and legitimizing this news organization, we should also talk about how he's trying to tear down credible sources for news, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN.
And while CNN hides behind the Facebook is a private company so we can censor free speech, regardless of the First Amendment excuse, does that mean Facebook can violate any and all of its users' Bill of Rights? And what about CNN, who has systematically targeted the president over a false collusion narrative?
Speculation actually has value too. It helps open our eyes, helps open our minds to what's possible. I know people like to mock cable news in moments like this. It's an easy punchline, right? We are kind of standing by to find out what the news is going to be, waiting for AG Barr to tell us something. But that does have value too.
Targeted Trump-supporting teenagers in D.C.
Where were the chaperones? Why did a school event involve MAGA hats? Then we get to the heart of it. The face-to-face encounter. The man, Nathan Phillips, apparently wanted to diffuse the tension, and he walked up to do exactly that. And surely the kid, Nick Sandman, he doesn't seem to be afraid, but he did make a choice, and that was to make it into a standoff.
Even in the case of the Covington school, I guess what I would have wanted was for them to maybe, be disciplined in some way by their school, and then there'd be some sort of reconciliation, right? They would apologize and for whatever part they played in it, and Nathan Phillips could apologize for whatever part he played in it. There could be some kind of reconciliation. But the truth of the matter is, in the current climate that we live in, that was very naive of me. The punishment is going to be that you are going to have this following around for the rest of your life.
And openly targeted tax-paying Americans by supporting Antifa.
You want to talk about Antifa or Black Lives Matter or any of the groups that assembled that day to fight against neo-Nazis, you make a moral equivalent between those two actions, you're making a mistake in America. The president did it that day. And you know it was a mistake. I don't know why you don't own that.
No. Chris, you and I have talked about this before. I do not make any differentiation between neo-Nazis and Antifa. Just because they claim in their name that they are anti-fascist, their tactics are, in fact, totally fascist.
One of the
people
groups
who
was
put on
created to kill people they don't like. The other group,
and so was
Black
Antifa.
Lives Matter,
Antifa
has hangers-on and aberrant actors within their ranks. But the groups were not created to destroy parts of humanity.
Explain to me the reasoning behind fighting. You have to make it so unpalatable to be doing white supremacist organizing that they no longer want to do that. And historically, that's what's worked. You have to put your body in the way, and you have to make it speak in a language that they understand, and sometimes that is violence.
They are America's brown shirts, and there is no difference between Antifa and those neo-Nazis. Both sides are thugs. Both sides are reprehensible.
Antifa, a communist-leaning organization hell-bent on the takedown of the United States.
Kamau Bell is, among other things, a host on CNN. He fronts a show on that channel called United Shades of America. It's run there for 2 seasons now. Bell calls himself a political provocateur, but that doesn't quite capture it. In fact, he is a supporter of Antifa. So, we couldn't get a response out of CNN, which is a little odd for a news organization to refuse to comment about something. Is this within bounds, though, for one of their hosts to be addressing a rally like this filled with people in black masks, Antifa, through a bullhorn?
Let's be clear who Antifa is. Obviously, they're a group that even Nancy Pelosi has denounced. Laura Ingraham on this network has suggested they should be labeled a terror organization. Berkeley's mayor has called them a criminal gang. So this is not a group that you want any network host within 1,000 yards of at a rally addressing. There's a hard and fast rule at every news organization, Tucker, and that is that hosts cannot, or journalists or reporters for that matter, cannot attend rallies or speak at rallies that its newsroom may be covering.
Is there anything we can do to stop what is amounting to full-blown treason, occupying televisions across the United States? Why, yes. Yes, there is. 18 U.S. Code 2385 advocating overthrow of government reads, whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, advises, or teaches the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying the government of the United States by force or violence or by assassination of any officer of any such government.
As a former government official, government's going to kill this guy.
Whoever with intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of any such government prints, publishes, edits, issues, circulates, sells, distributes.
Chris, the way you edited that segment that you showed just before this was appallingly misleading because you cut the quote off at a critical juncture. If you continue the quote you were showing, and I want to quote directly here because I want to be extremely precise, he said, you had people in that group who were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. He then continued in the next answer, I am not talking about the neo-Nazis and white nationalists because they should be condemned totally, end quote. So he was unequivocal that he was not talking about racists or neo-Nazis, but the way you deceptively edited what you just showed
there's nothing
made it look
about
as though he was.
All right, so Rob.
Or publicly displays any written or printed matter advocating, advising, or teaching the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying any government in the United States by force or violence.
Oh, Nazis canceled! There is no national Antifa group. It is mostly made up of people who are far left of center, who make it their mission to battle fascists, racists, and alt-right extremists. Behind the masks are people from all walks of life, artists, moms, ordinary Americans, as well as anarchists. But one of the interesting things that I found in doing this reporting, what's really surprised me, is that we found that a lot of these new Antifa members, they're young people, disenfranchised young people who felt that they were let down by both parties after the election, and this is where they ended up.
Why hunt these people down? Like, what is your goal? To expose them?
Exactly, because no one's paying attention to them, and sooner or later, they're going to be your police officers, they're going to be your politicians, they're going to be your teachers, they are going to be people that you cannot touch, and I don't want that to happen.
Now, that sounds awesome, right? This guy's basically working to expose them by doxing them online.
Whoever organizes or helps or attempts to organize any society, group, or assembly of persons who teach, advocate, or encourage the overthrow or destruction of any such government by force or violence shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. Patriots, start your engines. Let the treason trials begin. John Bowne reporting. Huffington Post recently boasted Jack Vandelove's Thursday night went like this. He went to a diner in Riverside, Missouri, ordered himself a vegetarian omelet, and served up arguably the most clear-eyed defense of the Green New Deal yet broadcast on Fox News.
Jack is an info specialist, and he really wants Howard Schultz to talk about climate change, specifically the Green New Deal, which you support. Why do you support it?
Yeah, it's really important we keep below 2 degrees Celsius of average warming. Otherwise, the consequences are going to be devastating.
How do we pay for it?
Yeah, how did we pay for World War II? At the end of the day, when something is this important, our economy is going to suffer if we don't pay for it.
Okay, but you do agree with the sentiment that this is as big a deal, climate change that is, as World War II?
Yeah, I mean, a little over 400,000 Americans died in World War II, and climate change is killing 150,000 people per year at least.
Okay, let's talk about the money, because that's a huge part of this. How are we going to pay for it?
Yeah. So during World War II, for one thing, the government just pushed some of the cash up front and raised some tax on some folks. But at the end of the day, it stimulated the economy so much that everyone benefited.
Okay, so to review, you are in favor of raising taxes in order to support the Green New Deal?
If that's the optimal solution the economists sort out, I'll go with that.
But did Vandelove, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's minion, actually serve up a clear-eyed defense? Those talking points simply point out that he and his generation are on board when it comes to taxing their future into oblivion to actually fund global governance under Agenda 2030, whether they know it or not, while being completely unaware that when it comes to climate change, the sun is about to head into a Maunder minimum of solar activity, which will cool the intensity of the sun significantly beginning around 2022 and culminating during AOC's targeted 2030 date when life on Earth supposedly ends due to global warming.
Every 11 years or so, sunspots fade away, bringing a period of relative calm. This is called solar minimum, says Dean Pesnell of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, and it's a regular part of the sunspot cycle. And what's with these clearly professional-made signs given to the protesters?
Where is the outrage from AOC's minion for the decimation of Africa and South and Central America's mineral resources after China was allowed to corner the market on manganese, aluminum, copper, iron, ore, gold, nickel, tin, and especially tantalum, which is needed for cell phones? The control of tantalum has decimated the Congo and Rwanda and fueled blood-soaked conflict in those areas.
If the Congo is the dark heart of Africa, then this must surely be its deepest pit. In the bowels of the earth, men dig through the mud for gold. This country is endowed in minerals: copper, uranium, diamonds and cobalt. And China is after it. At the end of last year, it signed a $9 billion deal with the Congo. And in the Congo, China has secured a considerable stake. It will receive 68% of mining revenue. The Congolese government's share is 32%.
China is also accelerating the extinction of elephants by 2040 due to China's insatiable appetite for ivory.
30 to 40,000 elephants are being killed in Africa every year, and with only around 400,000 left, it's not going to be long at this rate before they're gone.
But you don't hear AOC's minion using those talking points. No, we are all going to die in the UN target date of 12 years.
The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And this is the war. This is our World War II.
AOC's minion also doesn't mention the theft of our coastlines by billionaires building skyscrapers for a handful of other billionaires.
Sand has quietly infiltrated every corner of our world. Melted and transformed into glass, it sits on every shelf. It's also the source of silicon dioxide, a mineral found in our wines, cleaning products, detergents, paper, dehydrated foods, hairspray, toothpaste, cosmetics.
But it's also a source of strategic minerals such as silica, thorium, titanium, uranium. Think about your computers, your electronics. No electronic chips can be manufactured if you do not have high-quality sand.
The world is running out of sand, consumed by industry and construction, stolen and transported by criminal mafias around the world.
UN Agenda 2030 Democratic cheerleaders want the common tax-paying, overworked citizen to take the blame and shell out carbon taxation to the globalists to do absolutely nothing to curb their destruction of the planet and the raping of its natural resources. If you want to help the planet, follow the corporate money to the ivory towers of the New World Order's protected Chinese century, not the average person to their day job. John Bowne reporting. Candace Owens stirred up a hornet's nest as she faced a rabid panel of Democrats eager to paint most of America as white nationalists, a fantastical label that opens the doors to criminalize every American that disagrees with the Democratic Party.
And now we see witnesses invited by the minority who openly associate with purveyors of hate. White nationalism and its proliferation online have real consequences. Americans have died because of it. I did not call this hearing so that some may promote the very messages we need to combat. We must together rebuke those who seek to divide us through a message of hate.
How is YouTube working to stop the spread of far-right conspiracies intent on skewing users' perceptions of fact and fiction?
So I thank the chairman for convening this hearing and regret that there are some on this panel who have tried to hijack this hearing and desecrate the lives lost to the hate crimes and violence of white supremacists by attempting to use this as an opportunity to promote a political position or a political party. And I think that is despicable and deeply regrettable.
Yes, I actually wanted to respond to Congressman Cicilline because he was making references to me, and I thought that was a bit cowardly. He said he was dishonest when he said that the president refused to condemn white nationalism. Mr. Potts just literally gave the exact quote, the president doing just that. He does not want to accept the reality that the president has under multiple occasions condemned white supremacy and white nationalism, and the best condemnation of that is in the president helping the black community every single day with his policies.
Of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking.
I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler.
So when people try to legitimize Adolf Hitler, does that feed into white nationalist ideology?
It does, Mr. Liu. Yes, I think it's pretty apparent that Mr. Liu believes that black people are stupid and will not pursue the full clip in its entirety. He purposely presented an extracted clip.
The witness will suspend for a moment. It is not proper to refer disparagingly or to a member of the committee. The witness will not do that again. Witness may continue.
Sure, even though I was called despicable.
Witness may not refer to a member of the committee as stupid.
I didn't refer to him as stupid. That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all. You didn't listen to what I said. May I continue?
Please.
As I said, he is assuming that black people will not go pursue the full 2-hour clip. And he purposefully he cut off, and you didn't hear the question that was asked of me. He's trying to present as if I was launching a defense of Hitler in Germany, when in fact, the question that was asked of me was pertaining to whether or not I believed that whether or not I believed in nationalism, and that nationalism was bad. And what I responded to was that I do not believe that we should be characterizing Hitler as a nationalist. He was a homicidal, psychopathic maniac that killed his own people. A nationalist would not kill their own people. That is exactly what I was referring to in the clip, and he purposely wanted to give you a cut-up similar to what they do to Donald Trump to create a different narrative. That was unbelievably dishonest, and he did not allow me to respond to it, which is worrisome and should tell you a lot about where people are today in terms of trying to drum up narratives.
On one side, the ADL brought the lucrative anti-white and pro-reparations agenda.
The core ideology of white nationalists, which is a euphemism for white supremacists, is the belief in the imminent extinction of the white race because of a flood of non-white people and other people that they feel are degenerate, all orchestrated, puppeteered by Jews.
Sheila Jackson Lee even managed to put Thomas Jefferson on the spot.
You mentioned, if you would just very quickly just say it again, Mr. Thomas Jefferson's assessment of slaves. Could you just say that again for the record?
Intellectually inferior. We are unattractive physically. And let me find the last horrible thing he said. There's no tenderness in our love.
In the middle, the social media overlords, who determine what is now hate speech and what isn't based on the massive leftist bias in Silicon Valley.
Here you have someone that's calling, we crush the United States under our feet, etc. That was reported, and within a minute, the report came back from Instagram that there's no problem here. Basically, these aren't the drones you're looking for, just move on. If you're going to enforce these standards, why are they so quickly enforced and erroneously enforced against people like my friends Diamond and Silk? And why someone who wants to destroy the United States and kill everyone in this room gets a pass when others don't?
Thank you, Congressman. I'm not familiar with that exact example.
And on the far end, lightning bolts of reason and modern American patriotic frustration.
What are your thoughts about President Trump's remarks regarding the Charlottesville demonstration, where he's quoted as saying, you also had some very fine people on both sides?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because the media has really completely distorted the truth of that episode. What he meant, and he said so when he said it, is that they're fine people who want to get rid of Robert E. Lee's statue, and they're fine people who are not haters, who believe for historical reasons they want to keep that statue. And he made that clear. And then in the same breath, Mr. Gomer, in the same breath, President Trump said, quote, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists when I say fine people, because they should be condemned totally. And yet the media has never made that clear, that he, in that statement, he condemned neo-Nazis and white nationalists. He did not mean that they were fine people. Quite the contrary. He's disgusted by those people.
Do you consider yourself a conservative?
I am a conservative, yes.
Okay. Are you pro-life?
I am pro-life.
Okay. Does that trigger people when you see them, that they know that you're pro-life?
It makes them very upset, and Democrats hate me.
Do you hate Americans with black skin color?
Absolutely not. I actually love Americans with black skin color so much that I'm willing to fall on the sword 1,000 times for them to wake up and realize that we are being lied to, abused, and used by the Democrat Party.
How about Americans with white skin color? Do you hate them?
I do not, and that's a problem for people on the left.
Do you hate Hispanics?
I do not.
Do you hate Asians?
I do not.
Do you hate lesbians or gays or anybody from the LGBTQ community?
Nope, I've got all of that in my family.
I'm baffled because in the chairman's opening statement, he said that you openly associate with purveyors of hate.
Yes, purveyors of hate, by his definition, is anybody that supports the president. I support the president because he's done a tremendous job in helping the black community, despite all of the rhetoric from the media and leftists. Bottom line is that white supremacy, racism, white nationalism, words that once held real meaning, have now become nothing more than election strategies. Every 4 years, the black community is offered handouts and fear. Handouts and fear. Reparations and white nationalism. This is the Democrat preview.
In response to Turning Point USA's communications director Candace Owens' testimony, actor Jeffrey Thorne said that conservatives will never accept her, adding, "They will never think of you as anything but an obedient, as if all American conservatives are white and are simply Klansmen posing as politicians."
Oh, well, I just see right now Candace Owens is getting 15 minutes of fame, and just give me 30 seconds to prove my point. She just, again, assumed that all Democrats are hoping that black people fail. On her interview with C-SPAN, she says that the word nationalism has been compromised or poisoned by elitists. Tell that to the people in Charlottesville.
I am confident in my ideas. I am confident in the fact that black America is waking up and realizing that we have been missing out. I am confident that the biggest issue facing our community is father absence, which further deconstructs everything that is happening. Stop cutting me off. I didn't cut you off, okay?
You have
I have not
attacked
attacked you
If
once.
you want to combat hate, Democrats, how about eliminating your daily manipulation of it as a political strategy to control your constituency?
Democrat. She has basically said that every Democrat, the most diverse party of minorities, of people of color.
John Bowne reporting. You can always find us at dailynewscollective.com, at blablahshow.com, on YouTube at JonBownePolitix, on gab.ai at JonBownePolitix, and Twitter at NewsBound.